Hello everyone, welcome to Spartans Step Up. This webcast is sponsored by the Alumni Association of Case Western Reserve University. We welcome you all live streaming today, and for the first time ever, we are on location with a live audience. We are at CWRU's recently opened Wade Park Community Engagement Center. I'm excited to welcome you today. I'm Karen Kaler, and I am joined by one staff member and two CWRU alumni who live in the Wade Park neighborhood. Kate Klinowski is the director of our local government and community relations office. Kate's office is located right here in the Community Engagement Center. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you. Very happy to be here, Karen. It's an honor.
Okay, also joining us today is Vincent Holland. Vincent is a neighborhood resident and a CWRU alumnus with a master's in sociology. He also has a PhD in urban affairs and public administration from Cleveland State University. Vincent is a retired chief probation officer who currently works in chemical dependency, inpatient and outpatient programs for both Cleveland Clinic and university hospitals. Okay. He's a member of the CWRU Neighborhood Advisory Council. In addition, he's a lecturer in sociology at Cuyahoga Community College, and I don't know how you found time to be here, but thank you for doing so.
Well, let's just say that I am a longtime resident of this neighborhood, and you probably also noticed I couldn't get off Euclid Avenue to Cleveland State in Case Western Reserve. I couldn't get off the 6 bus.
Yeah, it's a great neighborhood to be in. Mm-hmm. And we also have on our panel Regina Williams. We're delighted to have Regina. She is a CWRU alumna with a PhD in urban studies and public administration. She's a distinguished scholar of African American history and culture at the Western Reserve Historical Society and a member of the CWRU Neighborhood Advisory Council. Welcome, Regina.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
So I have a few questions, and then we have some questions that were submitted by audience members when they registered. That's you out there. First, for Kate. Mm-hmm. Can you give us some background on this facility and why having this space was important to CWRU?
Absolutely. This is a wonderful historic place that just so happens to be here in the footprint of the Case Western Reserve University campus, and has the other advantage of being right on the border of our community. And so having this space here is a perfect opportunity for us to really create a front door to our university that also includes ways for our community to be involved and to come and be a part of what we all represent here as a community of learning and as a community of neighbors. It was built in 1913. It's been occupied by many people over the years, illustrious people, even a church, and now it is a community center, and we're really excited that it's here for that reason.
Well, and Regina and Vincent, how did you feel as neighborhood residents and alumni as well when you learned of CWRU's investment in this facility?
First.
Well, thank you, Vincent, because you're a tough act to follow, but thank you for letting me go first. I just think this is a wonderful neighborhood. I'm a native Clevelander, and I always love University Circle, so that's sort of my neighborhood, even though I live on Larchmere Boulevard. You know, it's not quite within walking distance for me anymore, but it's a really nice bus ride up the hill to Larchmere. And just being on Wade Park is incredible. Not only am I an alumna, I'm also someone who still feels the kinship to the late, great Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones, because her home was right across the street. And we are members of the same sorority. So when you see me wearing red, it's not because I don't like the blue of the Spartans here, but red is one of the colors of that sorority. And just to be in her neighborhood, to be on her street, to know that there are people on the street who still speak really lovingly of her, and she's an alumna too. Yes. That makes me feel good when I am in this space.
Yes. That's wonderful.
And for me, I'm a lifelong Clevelander. My wife teases me because I grew up off East 100th Street, which you could actually walk to. They tore that house down. I then moved up to 107th Street. They tore that house down. So my wife is nervous about the house we're in because we're in about 30 years there. But I'm a lifelong Clevelander who also fell in love with this neighborhood years ago. And I fell in love with it because of the cultural gardens and because of swimming pools that were outdoors, the Y in particular. At time, if you know Cleveland, Cleveland did have boundaries where you should or should not go. And one of the things I love about this area is they're opening up, so they're extending the boundaries so people who are both in the community and also at the school are now actually talking to each other, actually interacting, and even having barbecues with each other, which is great. So for me, I love the fact that I can walk out of my house, walk straight down the boulevard to the park, or I can walk straight down the boulevard to the lake. And interestingly, you still send your cross-country runners running all the way down from here to the lake, because I see them all the time passing me.
That's lovely.
Well, I was pleased to be able to come to the recent ribbon cutting. But Kate, can you tell us when you officially opened the doors and the ensuing celebration? Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. We've had a number of wonderful celebrations around the opening of this place. It's sort of been a multi-tiered process because there's so much that goes into creating a space like this. You know, wanting to be very intentional about creating a place that is invested not just by the university, but by the people that we're working with. So we've gotten a lot of feedback. We've done a lot of making sure that what we're putting in place is going to work. And so when we opened for an open house, we actually solicited a lot of ideas. So this was maybe back in September, shortly after we moved our offices here, and we were sort of all trying to get acclimated. And as they came in and walked through, you know, it was so nice to see people getting excited about it, even though it wasn't 100% all together yet. And we got lots of ideas. And so we responded. And as the building has been, we moved up to the ribbon cutting, more and more of those things were falling into place. And so that ribbon cutting happened, I believe in November, and then, or no, October, and then we are now looking at opening up for more scheduled events. So we already have had some events here, both on campus as well as people from off campus who have reserved the space to roll out our scheduling process to make sure that there is access, that we are making sure it's equitable, and that the people know we're here and that it's a welcoming place. And there's actually a phase 2 of this project that's in development. If I don't know if you've seen outside, but there's a giant swath of grass we're really hoping to use well and do some outdoor events. And so that will be really wonderful to see happening in the coming months. So thank you.
I know you're well informed by the CWRU Neighborhood Advisory Council, and I want to ask Regina to tell us more about that group and why you felt it was important to share your valuable time in that way.
Yes, it's, and I think this is an interesting connection we can make with something that Vincent said about the boundaries expanding, or just the footprint expanding. In fact, with the Neighborhood Advisory Council, I think it's safe to say the neighborhood is all of Cleveland and parts of East Cleveland. It's communities like Little Italy. And so it's a big neighborhood. And that organization, the NAC, just turned officially 3 years old. And we're from all over. We are quite diverse. Many of us are from Glenville. I am not. Nothing against Glenville, Vincent. But we are sort of technically in Ward 9, where this building is located. This is Glenville and University Circle. And so right here in the heart of this wonderful district with all of the great educational institutions like CASE and the Cleveland Institute of Music and the Cleveland Institute of Art, and home of the world-class Cleveland Symphony Orchestra, is just a beautiful place to be in the world, you know, for listening, for viewing visual art. And so I'm glad we have this organization, and we call this home now, this right here, this building on 113th and Wade Park, that we can all come together from the various smaller neighborhoods within this one great big CWRU community and have difficult conversations sometimes and talk the tough talk and do what we can to really try to gain a better understanding of the wonderfully diverse populations that live here in the city of Cleveland, to have them at the table. This is not just a group of experts making decisions about how we're going to handle the people in the community, in the hood. No, it's all of us together at the table, figuring it out. And when we're not here, maybe we're at a public library in the surrounding community. You know, it's maybe we're in an art studio in the surrounding community. It's been a wonderful experience. And I think we've grown a lot over the last 3 years. We have good leaders. Kate is amazing. And we all love Kate.
Yeah, that's just wonderful. And we all want more opportunities to bring people to the table, but to have a literal place where there's a table is like, how special. Well, Vincent, you are one of the leaders of our very active African American Alumni Association. How do you think members of that group feel about a facility like this focused on community outreach?
Well, before you do that, let me explain to you one of my leadership roles. I missed a meeting and everybody got together and said, oh, let's vote him into this position. That actually happened to me.
So,
Taught me, never miss a meeting. But even with that, there are a number of things that are kind of important. We have a lot of people who come from other states here. We've had a number of people who can walk literally from their home here. And when you get around to it, I think one thing we talk about is we talk about the university. But we also need to make sure we talk about the community of the university and the community within the university, because they're not always the same. Some are people from the New York area will come together. Some people come literally because they live close to the place, and some come because they get off work and come to school and then go to other places. I think the biggest thing that this organization has shown me is that when people sit down, we have much more in common than we have separate. We can talk about the thing. The other thing too is it's a problem-solving organization. And it's a problem-solving organization across tables, sharing food, sharing experience, realizing that sometimes you have to get past the hard conversations to get to the other conversations. And I will throw one other thing out too. Our young lady here has published some books. I didn't realize until I bought one of her books that she actually has a picture of my aunt in that book, from the Call and Post.
Okay.
So Cleveland is a big little city, and I try to tell people this. If you say the name of somebody in the city, usually by the third person, people know who that is. Because we are really a large town, small city, and that's a good thing.
well, I have some questions submitted by our audience members. So the first is for Kate, and related to specifics of the facility. Who can schedule events? Is the space open to the general community, or must they have a tie to the university?
Yes. So this is a space that is available free of charge. That's done intentionally for a very specific purpose, though. It's not like a free-for-all. Everyone can just like run in, because we have to be very careful and intentional about how we use our space. It's important. It's a sacred space, right? We have created this together in a meaningful way to create meaningful programming and dialogues, and we want it to be accessible. So we do have availability for people to book the space both inside the university, but if they want to meet here, their work has to be involved with something involving something outside of the university. So it can't just be like, oh, we're going to have a meeting about stuff for something that we're thinking about. It has to be an actual engagement activity. If the group in the community would like to come and work with us, that's another opportunity for us to say, yes, would you like to do something with us? We would like to do something with you. Let's meet here at the community center to do that. And if somebody would like to reserve a space here to do that, or to meet with their community group about something that is going on around us, then that seems like a perfect opportunity to use this space. So we are not in the business of gatekeeping, but we are in the business of making sure that when people come here, that it's with the intention of building this trust, building this relationship. And that's important to all of us.
Did you want to add on to
Just
that?
add a couple of really quick things. Sometimes people come to Cleveland and don't know its history.
Oh, yeah.
If you go down East 105th, you're walking on a trail that literally is one of the historical trails for African Americans. If you walk about a mile plus down, you'll come to a church called Corey. At that church, one of the top 10 speeches of the 20th century was made there by Malcolm X. And literally they have markers to denote it. And people ride past that sometimes without realizing you're riding past living history right as you speak. The other thing is a lot of people here sometimes on the corner, and I will tell you, growing up, one of the most interesting experiences I had is I had to do my homework, but I liked to play basketball. I took my book, which was Hamlet, went to the playground, sat down, and in between games, was waiting for winners. I'll never forget the fact that a person with nothing more what they used to call the old cheap Boone's Farm wine sat down with me and explained the entire book to me and helped me get a pretty good grade. So I say sometimes we don't need to look at the outside package, we need to look at the inside package for people. Because it can be marvelous sometimes. Got a good grade because of that.
Well, let me get, that was really lovely, but thank you. To get more back to specifics on the space and input of the residents, so this may be for all three of you, but for you two particularly, what types of programs, activities, and events would you like to see at the facility as a member of the neighborhood?
Great question. I'd like to see us be a living, breathing organism. In other words, we have the space, but we need to have the people in it. And in doing that, I think we need to shout out to those people who have written some very great histories about this place. And some of them are still here and can stand, I should say herstories before I get beat up, deservedly, about this place. I think the other thing too is we realize that we need to have the intellect, but we also need to have the physicality. And in doing that, we need to make sure that it stays open so people can have that time to run up and down the basketball court or use the swimming pool. And you have a couple people at this campus who are phenomenal about working with kids. Coach Harris, if you know, phenomenal. Matter of fact, if you want a child to have a mentor, you look for somebody like him. And the other thing too is we also need to make sure we tell our truths in ways where people don't see the just elite, which has their truth and it's very important. But those things that people talk about how they struggle to get through school. Because one thing we miss is a lot of people came here and they hit road bumps before they're able to find that path. And sometimes those road bumps can help other people avoid those road bumps. And we need to tell people about it.
Good. Regina, is there something you would like to say about what you would like to see here?
Oh, absolutely. I hope we will always have in this space on Wade Park in this amazing Wade Park, Magnolia, historic district, this feeling of tremendous welcome, that it will feel like a neighborhood. We've got all of these beautiful, stately homes, on Wade Park. But then too, we have the sanctuaries of the historic churches here. We have an amazing, as I said, concert hall for the Cleveland Orchestra to perform there, but other ensembles as well. We have the Malt to talk about East 105th Street again, which is part of our campus now. Yes. And this is, I know the concerts are free. Is it No Pay November or something like that? But so many beautiful free performances. But in this particular space that's set in this wonderful community, I'd like to have chamber concerts, have some live music. How about a string quartet? I don't know if we have a piano in the house yet.
We'll work on it.
Again, well, we can roll a piano. It's a little different. I like acoustic pianos. Okay. But again, it's just, things sound different in spaces like this when you don't necessarily have to amplify the sound. Yeah. I think there's a certain kind of intimacy that you have with a chamber concert. And then for people who have not yet been to Severance Hall because they think perhaps there is a dress code. And the Maltz is so imposing. Maybe they're a bit intimidated by that. If they haven't been to the Annisville Wolf Book Awards and know that everybody's family once you get through the door. maybe we can introduce them to some of the kinds of activities that are happening in those nearby facilities as well, because they all have ties, direct ties to Case Western Reserve University. So yeah, I'm voting first and foremost for chamber concerts in this space, in addition to the interesting dialogues. And the food, she feeds everybody. We talk, but we also eat. Yeah, and
They will come.
yeah, something like that.
About food, that's
I know.
So, speaking of food and those issues, what parking and transportation options are there, Kate?
Oh, well, it's, welcome to Case Western Reserve University. It's always been, a big city is always going to have big parking problems, but we're doing everything we can to mitigate those. We do have a little parking lot back here, which we're really grateful for. We have street parking that's available in the hours in the evening and on the weekends, so that expands a great deal. We have a number of bus routes that are close by. We have the Circle Link, thank goodness. We have, through our partnerships with UCI and the generosity of the university that allow these shuttle services to exist. We're also, as was mentioned before, within walking distance for many of the people who use this space, and that's really, really wonderful. I would be remiss if I didn't say something about the last question, when you were talking about the things you would like to see in this space. I love that you mentioned Coach Harris, and I love that you talked about the exciting, extraordinary things that could happen here, because that's wonderful. And it would be remiss for me to say, not mention that this is an opportunity here to highlight some of the things that we've been doing. The Case Western Reserve University alums, you know this, has been doing community work and outreach for years, forever, right? But we just haven't really been very visible about it. And so this is a really great opportunity for us to take some of the programs that are already here and are already thriving and take those to the next level and really make them more accessible. I would love to see that. And I'm just imagining little Vincent in his basketball, and it's making my heart happy.
So here's another question. Regina mentioned the neighborhood, this street. I mean, I took a wrong turn and wow, are there some gorgeous houses all along this street. So maybe, do any of the three of you know what resources are available to people moving into the area with interest in restoring one of these historical homes?
Well, actually, I'm one of these people who've actually done that. The home we live in used to be owned by the Boyd funeral family. It's two of us there, but we have 5 bathrooms.
Wow.
Enough bathrooms.
Are you going to get house guests? Be careful.
Yeah. We already have them, 3 cats that adopted us. But one of the things that people also need to think about is, how do we want our city to look 20 years in the future? And you don't start that 20 years in the future. You start that now. You also start looking at the fact that what's marketable, because we do know this. We have a wonderful hospital situation in this area, great hospitals. But there's also a little disconnect between some of the hospitals and some of the neighborhoods. We know that we have a great, great museum system in this place. I've gone to other places and we're good. We're really good. And they humanize it. The first PhD I ever met was 5'1". Her name was Mary Flayhive, and she lived on East 107th Street in the apartments, because back in the 50s, scientists weren't paid too well. She literally took all of us as kids under her wing and introduced us to geology, biology, talked to our parents, and in some ways she was a second type of mother to a lot of us. Matter of fact, my parents, and I still remember this, took us on fossil hunting trips because of where she told us to go, in Sandusky. Still have geodes and trilobites in my collection. And we realized that sometimes the most important thing isn't the neighborhood, isn't the community, it's the person in persons. And they're persons who everybody knows the neighbors like the mother of the neighborhood, the grandmother of the neighborhood. And we need to start making those more institutional, as opposed to people having to knock on doors till they find, hello, are you the grandmother that has the cake that I can have some of? Because when you get around to the bottom line is, this will change. But we as people need to make sure that how we change is in direct to humanity, as opposed to, shall we say, just, oh, we want a nice big building with my name on it. And it's pretty important.
Can you say that lovely woman's name again?
Mary Flahive,
I know
who actually has a scholarship with the Cleveland Museum of Natural History down here. She's been dead for a number of years, but she inspired a lot of us in the fact that we were all her children. Doesn't matter who we were, what neighbor we were her children. And I still remember the interesting looks we got when we were kids, looking for things like trilobites and brachiopods and all these other fancy little terms, where we were actually quizzed by some of the older kids about, do you really know what this is? Yeah, if we didn't, our teacher back here would let us know. In very, very caring ways, but she'd let us know.
So, and do either of you have resources for restoring homes?
Well, I love what Vincent said about the museum community and those people who humanize the museum experience. I love my job, working at the Western Reserve Historical Society, Cleveland History Center, great museum, one of the oldest cultural institutions in the city, 157 years. But I said to someone just last week that I think people are more important than collections. Nothing wrong with cars in the Crawford Auto Aviation Museum, nothing wrong with costumes and dolls and other things that we collect and keep in the library, rare books, manuscript materials, but without people, you really don't have that connection to the families in the surrounding community. So I think if we meet the needs of people first, if we welcome them warmly, if we treat them well, once they've paid their admission, they will come back. When they need a place to store their archives or donate their rare books, they may think of us. But I think it has to be about people more so than collections. And I think there are museums within walking distance of this house who do a very good job of what Vincent just described. Again, the teacher's name, I'm going to forget.
Mary Flahive.
Professor Flahive.
To make it more interesting, she was the only woman who was a scientist there. And she actually told our story. Back then, as a geologist, quick story, you didn't have the chemicals you did. And one of the tests is finding out what kind of rock was. You had to blow on it till it changed colors. Still can't get over that. Remember, this was the 50s. And she mentioned that as little as she was, some of the males passed out, knowing, you're a fragile woman. She took that to heart. Yeah, watch.
Yeah, and as far, again, as resources, those human resources, if I can mention a name of an institution, first and foremost, that has lots of good people connected to it, but the Cleveland Restoration Society. It's not an institution that I've ever worked for, but one that we partner with, certainly through Cleveland State University, through the Levin College of Urban Affairs, but the Cleveland Restoration Society is all over, really. It's Greater Cleveland Restoration Society, and they do incredible work. One of the things they're doing now is working in partnership with a lot of the historically black churches, including the ones on East 105th Street, which is a major thoroughfare, right here in University Circle. But the Greater Abyssinia Missionary Baptist Church, the Corey United Methodist Church, certainly Glenville is now the heart of one of the East Side black communities. But the early 20th century history, we're going to find that Glenville is a Jewish community. And as Jewish families move further east, many of them to Shaker Heights and Cleveland Heights and Beechwood, black people during the Great Black Migration began to move into Glenville. And so the Cleveland Restoration Society helps us study not only the buildings, that will need to be restored after 100 years and maintained lovingly after 100 or more years on East 105th Street, but also to know the stories of the people through oral histories, through research in libraries like ours at the Western Reserve Historical Society. So yes, CRS. Kathleen Crowther, I believe is the president and CEO of the Cleveland Restoration Society. They have amazing resources, grants and loans and nominations to the National Register of Historic Places, and they help people do that research, if that's not their area of expertise.
Well, I really appreciate what you said about the museums and about your where you work is accessible museums are not just about ramps. you need that. This welcome makes them much more accessible. And Kate, do you want to add to this?
Absolutely. I mean, in addition to everything you said, and I'm so grateful that you mentioned the really important aspect of this, which is the humanity of it at the foundation, because people will want to move to a place like this when they feel that they belong, that there's a place to go, that it's a desirable place because of this community. I can feel that here. When we moved in, I mean, we all but got like 30 pies, right? It was just like, everybody's like, welcome to the neighborhood. It was wonderful. And so when people see that and experience that, I think programs like Greater Circle Living, which provides very large grants to people who come and live and work in this area to rehab houses. They will give people money. They're forgivable. They're absolutely forgivable loans. They will give people, there's CDCs all over the city that provide assistance. There are private and public funders of all of these places. There's little nonprofits everywhere that'll give you this grant to get a new roof and that grant to get a new, HVAC system or whatever it is you need. And so what Vincent said a little while ago about this being a very big small town or a small big town or however we want to call it, we have great resources, but we have very good networks and very tight networks. And all you have to do is say, where do I need to go for this? And someone will find it, right? So don't hesitate to ask.
May I say also, there is someone right across the street. She was one of the neighbors for Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones. Her name is Barbara Wilcher Norton. And I think she's the queen of Wade Park or some such title. But she was here for the ribbon cutting. And I believe it was her organization. Is it Neighbor to Neighbor? Yeah, that.
Sorry, say the name again?
Neighbor to Neighbor.
Okay, Neighbor.
I came to understand that this building, somebody had the nerve to suggest that it should be raised. And they said, oh no, we can't let it happen. But she is that kind of leader on the ground, great educator, an organizer, and very personable. And it's not just through the teaching or the working collaboratively with other people in Neighbor to Neighbor, but also there's an organization that she led or continues to lead. I believe she's still the president. If not, she'll correct me. She'll hear this, and she really good teacher. She'll correct me, Regina, if you want to talk about the Chums. It's a women's organization. The founders had ties to a certain historically black college in the South, but the Chums are all over, and so they are here in this community. And I believe their husbands are called the Hums, the Chums and the Hums. But I had a chance to meet her and just doing a guided tour of the city of Cleveland when the Chums, they had their national conference here. And that was late summer, 2023. But she's just an amazing person. Again, that individual in the community, award-winning. She received an award the same time that the former leader of the University Circle Incorporated, now the county executive, they both received the awards. And Case Western Reserve was involved in that, just recognizing who's here, who are the movers and the shakers. Sometimes they're elected officials, sometimes they're appointed, sometimes they're just folks in the neighborhood who know how to get things done. Barbara Wilcher Norton is one of those people, and I'm so glad she's friends with the Neighborhood Advisory Council, because if I get in trouble, I want her to be on my side, because she's a fighter. Yes.
Absolutely. This is just a fabulous discussion. But I do have another submitted question that I'll be in trouble if I don't read this one. Okay. Kate, this may be a difficult one. Does CWRU have plans to expand into other neighborhoods?
Oh, okay. Expand. Expand's a weird word. We really aren't. I don't know if expand is the right word. This space right here is really kind of in the campus area. I think what our focus is going to be on is looking at ways to make our programs and our partnerships more robust and to build them to have a greater capacity through our experiences with this fantastic network we have, right? So we're not limited to the physical space, but we don't have to look at it in terms of, oh, we're going to build something here or build something there. the building we're doing is the relationship, right? So as we continue to grow and learn and build that trust we've been talking about, which is so delicate and so abstract, I think we're going to find that we'll be building a campus that is not confined to a campus. And that's going to be a really exciting thing to see happen.
That's terrific. And then my very final question is for Vincent and Regina. So this house sat vacant for many years. Now it's been renovated and will be used to build stronger relations among the university and the surrounding communities and neighborhoods. And you have touched on this a little, but could you just summarize your personal thoughts on what that and what you're hearing, how you feel about that and what you're hearing from your neighbors?
I can't necessarily speak for the neighbors here. I can't speak for some of my neighbors on the other side of town where I stay. I'm blessed to be in one of those old homes with neighbors who are educators. And the one thing that I have to say is as we move forward, I think it's more important to keep our ears open than our mouths open. Because we need to hear what's there. And I have to say this, when you have conversations in this neighborhood, the first thing you have to get through is trust. Then you can have a dialogue. You can't go directly to, okay, what do you want? You have to sit down because people have heard that so many times that you have to basically do things that are trusting. And trusting, part of trust is not bringing them to space sometimes it's going to their space. Because you realize that even though this physical space, there's also psychological space in the same place. And we need to make sure people connect to those things. It was kind of amazing to me when I first went to the school that I actually had a person argue with me, oh, you're not a Case Western Reserve. Well, I got tuition, I got to pay all this and everything else. Because I came from a high school that had a 50% dropout rate. And yet in that high school with a 50% dropout rate, the person who was last in our class is a college graduate. He knew he was smart, but he couldn't stand the teachers telling him how dumb he was. And sometimes teachers would do that. I think the one thing that we find very important is that we have to see trust to work with trust, which means the words don't mean as much as the actions of people. So we need to definitely move toward the actions in what we do.
And the last word, Regina?
Well, I think it's to our credit, I have to brag a little bit, that we've done some good things. Even before this building opened to the community, we were going out to meet our neighbors. We're on, the library is here, East 55th and Woodland, I believe, the central branch. I mean, we just, we have a visual artist who has a heart of pure gold. Her name is Gwen Garth, but she insists, that we meet people where they are, that we don't judge anybody, we accept them for who they are, and she insists that we go, again, as Vincent said, to them. It's not just about everybody coming to this place, but that we have something that belongs to all of the community, and we can meet them physically where they are in their neighborhoods. And so I like that. And as we go forward, I hope we don't lose that. Right. Now that we have a permanent home, and the four walls, brick building, very imposing, the ribbon has been cut, clean and well lit and all the university colors, that we don't lose those connections. That's my hope. That we spent almost 3 years building because we have this space. I don't think we're going to lose them, because one of the great things about this organization, in addition to Kate, is that we have 2 elected leaders. One of them is a staff member here, Janice Eatman Williams. Her office is upstairs. Her connections are with schools and other institutions in the surrounding community, and she has a small army, right, of folks who go out and work in tandem with the educators in the classroom to serve students in the surrounding community. So I think, again, that we're doing a lot of things right. It can only get better if we can stay focused on the people. A people-centered approach to community outreach, I think, is the best way to go, and I hope we can continue to do that.
Oh, that's just fabulous. Well, thank you for being here, the live audience, the virtual audience, the live streamed audience. Particularly, thank you to those who submitted questions, and huge thank you to Vincent, Regina, and Kate. This has just been a wonderful talk here at our first own location session at the Wade Park Community Engagement Center. Now, if you want to know more, on your screen as we finish, there should be an email that will come up. So you'll have an email with an address that's going to be on the screen, and that's where you can contact for more information. So again, thank you all for joining us.